Yeah, so thank you so much, everyone, for joining this year's UK IGF, and particularly to all of our panelists throughout the day who have brought their expertise to deliver really insightful and thought-provoking discussions. So me and Bella have been catching up throughout all the breaks just to reflect on today's discussions and the various sessions. And I will hand over to her to cover some of the key themes that have really resonated throughout the day. But before that, I just wanted to reflect on a lot of the questions that have sort of bubbled to the surface, and I think really demonstrate how complex some of these discussions really are, and why multi-stakeholder dialogue and diverse perspectives are just so important. So, I've just got, I won't go through all my questions because there's a lot, but if I had to sort of go through the most important ones, I think, how do we bring people along this journey as we see the internet develop and grow? How do we make sure that the internet is accessible, inclusive, and fair? How do we square up some of the circles that arise when we think about topics like safety, privacy, fairness, and innovation? How do we strike balance and nuance between real life experiences, challenges, opportunities, and actual technical workabilities of the technologies that underpin the internet? So some of these we've touched on today, like data, content moderation, AI, encryption, just to name a few. And also, what role will regulation play in helping to answer these questions? How do we make sure regulation is outcomes-based, coherent, future-proofed, and technologically neutral? There's obviously not enough time in a day to untangle all of these questions, but I think me and Bella have sort of come to 3 or 4 themes that we've noted throughout the day. So I'll hand over to her to sort of talk us through those.
I'll keep it short. We have a drinks reception immediately after this, and I think it'll be much more interesting and productive to continue these conversations, maybe with a glass of wine. But just as a quick reminder, the guiding theme that we kicked off the day on is resilient internet for a sustainable and shared common future. And, throughout the day, we've been speaking and really reflecting on some of the incredibly interesting and thought-provoking interventions from the panelists during the sessions, but also in the break and at lunch as well, where we continued the conversation and built on that momentum. And as we see it, there's 3 key topics from today, but please disagree with us, challenge us, and, let's continue the discussion during the reception as well. For us, these 3 key topics could maybe be arranged as the moment or the timing that we're speaking about internet governance in a UK context, how we're convening and having these multi-stakeholder discussions, and finally, who we're talking about at the end of the day. So to talk about that first kind of nebulous theme, when, or the timing, it's pretty clear the UK has reached a little bit of a watershed moment when it comes to discussions on internet governance. We have a variety of regulatory initiatives that we've discussed at length in the Transparency and AI panel and in the Online Safety panel. We have a rapidly evolving threat landscape when it comes to threat to the internet as we know it, and threat to some of the most vulnerable groups coming online at an unprecedented rate, as we discussed in the Digital Inequalities panel and again in the Online Safety panel. We have shifting political priorities and a great degree of instability, as multiple people have commented on and is quite plainly obvious to see. We have a ticking clock on the Online Safety Bill, as Lucy Powell MP mentioned in her opening introduction. And at the international level, we have a little bit of a political sense of urgency to speak with one voice. And I think this was touched upon very well by our panelists in the Splinternet and Avoiding Internet Fragmentation session just now. To talk about the second theme, this is how we're talking, this is how, we're convening these dialogues. We have definitely noticed today that obviously the discussion on internet governance can be incredibly politicized and tied to political conversations. There are many, many contentious areas. Narratives can quickly turn divisive. And a lot of the time, I think experts, practitioners, and, I think regular people following internet governance discussions alike can fall into the trap of drawing false dichotomies and, ironically, for a computer adjacent community, falling into binaries and not, finding that middle ground. False dichotomies, for example, maybe between privacy and security or transparency and innovation, competing models. But I think something that's really come out of the discussions today is that it's clear we need to build this middle ground. And I think initiatives like the IGF do so, building an inclusive, very global approach rooted in the UK, which recognises the value of multi-stakeholder interventions and multi-stakeholder dialogues and disagreements. And again, kind of moving beyond those binaries. And finally, the third nebulous kind of lump of ideas and themes that we've been trying to put together over the day is the who. Really, who are we talking about at the end of the day, and who are we as an internet governance community? A key couple of themes that have emerged throughout the day are trust and confidence at all levels of the stack, really, and across stakeholder groups and across all mechanisms of internet governance as a process. I think that something we would all agree to, or at least I would, I hope we do, is that this level of trust and this level of multi-stakeholder confidence is really a driver of resilience and a driver of sustainability of internet governance itself, but also of conversations around internet governance. I think this was incredibly clear during the Bridging Digital Inequalities panel, connecting old and young online as they come online or stay offline. But really, to bring this all to a close, I think something we've realized is at the end of the day, this conversation is all about people. And I think that is something we can all probably stay a little bit optimistic about, even though we see, increasing challenges to the internet as we know it, whether we're talking political challenges, regulatory challenges, an evolving threat landscape. At the end of the day, I think every panel has really returned that underlying narrative that the driver of resilience, the driver of sustainability on the internet is building that multi-stakeholder trust, building that multi-stakeholder confidence, and just putting people at the heart of conversations like we're doing today. So as a quick wrap up, I know it's been mentioned before, but today's discussion will be summarised in a report and be made available on the UK IGF website within the next fortnight. Then it'll be submitted to the IGF NRI session in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia from the 28th of November onwards by Steering Committee Representative Nigel Hickson from DCMS. We'll also be making a recording of all the panel sessions available at the end of the week on the UK IGF website, which is where you can find further information on the Steering Committee getting involved. As Dani and I both mentioned, we're both new members to the Steering Committee, and it's a really wonderful thing to be part of.
And if you'd like to join the steering committee or contribute to next year's panels, we'd love to have you. So please feel free to reach out to info@ukigf.org.uk. I'm sure this will be circulated to all participants afterwards. And nominate as the Secretariat will be able to liaise with you. And with that, I would like to formally close this year's UK IGF and hope that you'll join us for drinks and nibbles in the atrium to network and to continue some of the discussions from today. Thank you everyone for joining us.